My name is Maya, and I'm 17 years old. In my high school, everyone knows me. I'm the perfect girl, the one who has it all. Good grades, popular friends, a huge house with a pool, and a father who drives a Porsche. But what no one knows is that I feel trapped in a golden cage, suffocated by expectations I never chose. And then, he arrived. Zane. Zane is everything my parents would hate. He always lingers in the back of the classroom, his face half hidden under a black hoodie, with a mocking smile that seems to say he doesn't care about anything. He never does his homework, skips classes, and there are all kinds of rumors about him. They say he smokes behind the gym, steals from stores, and hangs out with shady people. The first time he spoke to me was after a math class. I had stayed behind to talk to the teacher, and when I walked out, I saw him leaning against the wall. "Hey, princess, don't you ever worry about getting your fancy shoes dirty in a place like this?" I rolled my eyes and wanted to ignore him. But he kept going. His words were provocative, but his gaze fascinated me. He looked at me as if I were a mystery to be solved, not just a rich girl with a perfect life. In the following days, he started showing up everywhere I went. Sometimes he would throw teasing remarks at me. Other times, he would ignore me completely. And instead of staying away from him like any sensible girl would, I was drawn to him, like a moth to a flame. We truly talked for the first time one night after a party where I was bored to death. I had stepped outside for some air, and I found him smoking in a dark corner. "Want to try?" he asked, holding out his cigarette. "No thanks." "Then why are you here, Maya? This kind of party is your thing, isn't it?" I didn't know what to say. Why was I standing there talking to him, being interested in him, when everything told me I should stay away? But the more I got to know him, the more I realized he wasn't just what people said about him. Yes, he had a complicated life. Yes, he made mistakes, but he also had a sensitivity that no one saw. With him, I could be myself, away from my parents' and friends' expectations. Zane was a bad boy, and I was the perfect girl. But for the first time in my life, I felt alive. But things started to get complicated. Zane had this gift of making me forget the world around me. When we were together, everything felt simple. We talked for hours about our dreams, about what we hated, and everything we wanted to escape from. He often told me I was too good for him, but I could see in his eyes that he loved breaking down my walls. And I loved that he did. One night, he took me to a place he called his refuge. It was an old abandoned hangar by a lake. The walls were covered in graffiti, and the air smelled of damp wood. "This is where I come when I need silence," he said as he lit a candle he had in his bag. It wasn't much, but in that moment it felt magical. "You know, Maya, sometimes I wonder what it's like to have a life like yours," he murmured, staring at the lake. "And I wonder what it's like to live without always trying to please others," I replied. He looked at me with that half-mocking smile, but this time, there was something else in his eyes. Sadness, maybe. It was beautiful, until it wasn't anymore. One afternoon, as I was waiting for him near the basketball court where he usually hung out, a black car pulled up. Two men stepped out, and their presence immediately made me uneasy. They spoke to Zane, but it wasn't a friendly conversation. Their voices were low, but I could feel the tension in their gestures. When they left, I confronted him. Who were those guys, and why did they look like they were threatening you? "It's nothing, Maya. You don't need to know. Zane, you can't just ignore this. If you're in trouble, I want to help." He laughed, but it was a joyless laugh. "Help me? You? Maya, you live in a world of glitter. You have no idea what my life is like." His words hurt, but I couldn't give up. Not after everything we had shared. The more I discovered his world, the more I realized that Zane wasn't just surviving in a complicated life. He was trapped in it. He worked for those men, delivering packages he never wanted to describe to me. He said he had no choice, that it was this or something far worse. One night I followed him. My heart was pounding, but I had to know. I saw him enter a warehouse. There were men waiting for him. I stayed hidden behind a container, but what I saw chilled me to the bone. Bags, weapons, and threatening looks. When he saw me afterward, he knew that I knew. "Why are you here, Maya?" he asked, his eyes filled with the kind of anger he had never shown me before. "Because I love you, and because you're better than this." He laughed, but this time it was almost a sob. "You don't understand anything. You don't know what it's like to have no choice." Things had taken a turn. Me, the perfect girl, was now caught in a world where nothing made sense, except Zane. But like any story where someone tries to escape their own golden world, complications appear out of nowhere, and one of them was about to change everything. Zane's sister Luna was a storm. She had those fiery eyes and a breathtaking temperament, but it wasn't her beauty that intrigued me, it was her fixation on her brother. Luna wasn't just the protective sister, she was obsessed. "You know, Maya, sometimes I wonder why he never listens to me. I feel like I have to control everything in this family," she told me one day, shrugging as she barged into the living room while Zane and I were talking. I looked at her, half amused, half worried. "You know, Luna, he's an adult. He can make his own decisions. You're not his mother." She smiled, a sinister glint in her eyes. "Oh, but Maya, I'm not his mother, I'm his sister. And sister, they know everything." I barely had time to process what she had just said before Zane walked in, and Luna disappeared as quickly as she had arrived. In the days that followed, things got even stranger. I started receiving anonymous messages on my phone. "If you want Zenon, you're going to have to fight for him." Or, "Did you forget about Luna?" She saw everything. She heard everything. At first, I thought they were just jokes, but when I ran into Luna one night after school, she gave me a smile that sent chills down my spine. "Zane isn't like other guys, Maya. You really think he's going to save you, huh?" "Well, he has a pretty messed up way of saving people." She gave me a look full of hidden meanings before turning her back and vanishing into the crowd. I knew everything was turning into a dangerous game, but I was too caught up in the passion to see where it would actually lead us. Zane and I were electric, but with Luna around, things were turning explosive. One night, after escaping a party that got a little too intense with Zane's friends, he took me to an empty park. "You know, I think Luna is trying to ruin everything between us," I said, trying to make a joke to lighten the mood. "She's a little possessive, isn't she?" Zane gave me a look, half amused, half exhausted. "Not just a little possessive, Maya, completely. She thinks she owns me, but I'm far from being the obedient little dog she's trying to train." I laughed despite the situation. "That's a hell of a family dynamic. Have you ever told her you'd rather be a wildcat?" Zane shook his head, a smirk on his lips. "Trust me, if I told her that, she'd lock me in a cage and that would be the end of it." But humor didn't change anything. Luna kept playing her game. She started showing up wherever Zane and I were, even when he hadn't planned to see her. One time, she came to the same party, blending into the crowd, and when Zane arrived, she walked up to him like I wasn't even there. "You know, I could hurt you a lot more than you think, Zane," she whispered in his ear. Then she turned to me with a smug look. "And you, Maya, do you really think you can save him?" This time, it wasn't a game anymore. I was determined to take control of the situation, but I knew Luna wouldn't leave me alone. If I wanted to keep Zane, I had to be smarter, and maybe a little bolder. The story was spiraling, full of passion, danger, and nervous laughter to keep from crying, because no matter how much we laughed together, beneath the surface, a tragedy was brewing. Zane was caught in a war between his family and me, and Luna had no intention of letting me win. The game was on, and there were no rules.